The day Marcus smiled at me through gritted teeth and said, "Whatever you want, babe." Instead of arguing about the thermostat, I felt my stomach drop. That's when I knew. He wasn't agreeing with me because he'd become more agreeable. He'd stopped fighting because I no longer mattered enough to fight with. If you've ever felt invisible in your own relationship, or wondered when caring turned into indifference, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Your story matters, and you're not alone in this. Now let me take you back to where it all began. But to understand how I ended up sitting on our bathroom floor at 2 a.m., scrolling through 3 years of lies on a phone that wasn't mine, I need to take you back to the beginning. Back to when our fights meant something. Back when his passion, even his anger, was proof that he still cared. Back to when I thought our volatile love story was just who we were, never imagining that the silence that would replace it would be so much worse. My name is Emma, I'm 34 years old, and I'm about to tell you how I lost my husband twice. First slowly when he stopped caring enough to fight. And then all at once when I discovered why. Marcus and I met 7 years ago at a friend's housewarming party in Brooklyn. I was 27, working as a graphic designer at a startup that would eventually fold, and he was 29, a sous chef at an upscale restaurant in Manhattan. I noticed him first, tall, with these intense dark eyes and hands that moved with purpose as he talked. He was arguing with someone about the best way to prepare risotto, and I found myself gravitating toward the conversation. "You're wrong," I'd interjected, surprising myself. The best risotto I ever had was in this tiny place in Rome, and they added the stock all at once, not gradually. He'd turned to me with this incredulous expression. "That's not risotto, that's just wet rice." "It was perfect rice," I'd shot back, grinning. "Perfect doesn't mean correct," he'd replied, but he was smiling too. We argued for 45 minutes about Italian cooking before he asked for my number. Our first date was a 4-hour dinner where we debated everything from the best pizza in New York to whether Die Hard was a Christmas movie. We disagreed on almost everything, but it felt electric. He challenged me. Challenged him. Neither of us backed down easily, and that friction generated heat that felt like passion. Looking back now, I can see that I mistook combat for connection. But in those early days it felt so alive. My previous relationships had been with agreeable men who wanted to make me happy, who bent to accommodate me. Marcus pushed back. He had opinions. He stood his ground. After years of men who treated me like I might break, Marcus treated me like an equal opponent, and I thought that meant he respected me. We moved in together after 8 months. His restaurant schedule meant he worked nights, so I'd stay up late, waiting for him to come home smelling like garlic and wine and the industrial heat of professional kitchens. We'd sit on our tiny apartment balcony and he'd smoke a cigarette. His one vice I hated, while we talked about our days. Even then we'd argue. About politics, about his smoking, about whether we should get a cat, about my tendency to leave cabinet doors open, about his habit of leaving beard trimmings in the sink. "You're so stubborn," he'd say, but he'd be smiling. "You're impossible," I'd reply, kissing him anyway. The sex after our fights was intense. Felt like we were channeling all that energy, all that friction into something primal. Thought that was healthy. I thought that was passion. I read articles about how fighting in relationships could be good as long as you fought fair. And we did fight fair mostly. We didn't call names. We didn't hit below the belt. We just fought. About everything. We got married 3 years ago, on a crisp October day in upstate New York. The ceremony was at a small inn, with about 50 guests. During our vows, Marcus promised to never stop challenging me, and I promised to never stop fighting for us. Everyone laughed. They thought it was charming, our contentious dynamic. "They keep each other on their toes," my mom said to his mom during the reception. What none of us knew was that eventually, he would stop keeping me on my toes altogether. And that would hurt so much more than any argument ever could. Our first year of marriage was more of the same. We argued about where to spend Thanksgiving, whose turn it was to clean the bathroom, whether to paint the bedroom gray or beige, how much to spend on a new couch. The restaurant promoted him to head chef, which meant even longer hours and more stress. I switched jobs to a better design firm with a demanding creative director. We were both tired, both stretched thin, both quick to snap at each other. "Can you please just load the dishwasher the right way?" I'd ask, irritated after a long day. "There is no right way, Emma. It's a dishwasher, not a puzzle. Plates go in the back, glasses in the front. It's not complicated. You know what's complicated. Coming home after a 14-hour shift to be criticized about fucking dishes." We'd go back and forth, voices rising, until one of us stormed off or we exhausted ourselves into silence. Then later we'd reconcile. He'd apologize for snapping. I'd apologize for nitpicking. We'd order takeout and watch a movie. His arm around my shoulders, my head on his chest. We'd promised to be better, more patient. Until the next fight. But here's the thing I didn't realize until it was too late. Those fights meant he was still present. Still engaged. Still invested enough to argue with me about the small, stupid things that make up a shared life. When you fight with someone, you're acknowledging that their actions affect you, that you have expectations of them, that you want them to change because you're building something together. When you stop fighting, it means you've stopped caring enough to try. The shift started about 18 months ago, so gradually I didn't notice it at first. It's like watching someone's hair grow. You don't see it day by day, but suddenly you look at an old photo and realize how much has changed. The first sign was a Monday evening in April. I came home from work frustrated because my creative director had shot down a campaign I'd spent weeks developing. I was ready to vent, to complain, to have Marcus tell me I was right and my boss was an idiot. Our usual routine. But when I launched into the story, he barely looked up from his phone. He murmured. "Are you even listening to me?" "Yeah, your boss sucks." He kept scrolling. I waited for him to ask questions, to engage, to argue with me about whether I should have presented the campaign differently. But he didn't. He just sat there, thumb moving across the screen, half present at best. "What are you looking at?" he asked. "Just work stuff. New menu planning." I let it go. He was probably tired. The restaurant had been slammed lately, and he was dealing with a front-of-house manager who was driving him crazy. I made myself dinner. He'd already eaten at work, and we spent the evening in the same room but separate, him on his phone, me on my laptop. The second sign came 3 weeks later. I bought a dress for a wedding we were attending, a bridesmaid dress in a shade of dusty rose I wasn't sure about. Normally, I'd model it for Marcus, and he'd give me his honest opinion. He was never afraid to tell me if something didn't work. "That makes you look washed out," he'd said about a yellow sundress once, and I'd returned it because he was right. But when I tried on the rose dress and walked into the living room, he glanced up and said, "Looks nice. You don't think it washes me out?" "No, it's fine. You look great." "Fine. Just fine. Emma, it's a nice dress. You'll look beautiful. Isn't that what you want to hear?" But it wasn't. I wanted his real opinion. I wanted him to care enough to look at me critically, to tell me if the waist hit wrong or if I should go a size up. I wanted him to engage with the details of my life, even the silly ones. This strange agreeableness felt wrong, like he was placating me just to end the conversation quickly. The third sign was about the thermostat, the infamous moment I mentioned at the start. We'd been fighting about the apartment temperature for years. I ran cold, he ran hot. I wanted it at 72. He wanted it at 68. We'd argued about this at least once a week during every winter we'd lived together. But one evening in late May, when the weather was starting to get warm, I came home and immediately turned on the AC, setting it to 68. "Really?" he'd said in previous years. "It's not even that hot yet. Can we wait until it's at least 75 outside before we start running the AC into the ground?" But this time he just looked at me, smiled this tight, closed-off smile and said, "Whatever you want, babe. Whatever you want." Like he couldn't be bothered to have an opinion. Like the temperature of the home we shared was no longer worth discussing. Like I was a stranger whose preferences he had no stake in. That was the moment I knew something had fundamentally shifted. The ground beneath my feet felt unsteady. That night I lay in our bed, set to my preferred temperature, and felt colder than I had all winter. The fourth sign was about his phone. Marcus had never been particularly protective of his phone before. It would sit on the coffee table or kitchen counter, unlocked, available. If it rang while he was in the shower, I'd glance at it to see who was calling. If he got a text while we were watching TV, I could see the preview on the screen. It wasn't that we were in each other's phones constantly, but there was this casual transparency that suggested neither of us had anything to hide. That started changing around June. I first noticed it when we were sitting on the couch, watching a cooking competition show, one of the few things we still did together. His phone buzzed, and he immediately picked it up, angling it away from me as he read the message. Then he got up and went into the bedroom to respond. "Everything okay?" I asked when he came back. "Yeah, just work drama. Roberto is threatening to quit again." It was plausible. Roberto was the temperamental line cook who threatened to quit every other month. But something about the way Marcus had moved, the quick grab of the phone, the protective angle of his body, made my stomach twist. After that, I started noticing his phone habits more. He'd changed his passcode. I discovered this by accident when I tried to use his phone to look up a restaurant menu, and my usual attempt, his birthday, didn't work. He took his phone with him everywhere now, even just to go to the bathroom. It sat face down on the nightstand at night. He'd started turning off notifications, so nothing flashed on his lock screen anymore. "Why'd you change your passcode?" I asked him one morning as we were getting ready for work. He didn't miss a beat. "Security thing. I read an article about phone theft and how you should change your codes regularly." "Oh, what's the new one? Do you need to get into my phone?" "No, we always knew each other's codes." "Emma." He'd sighed like I was being unreasonable. "It's just a phone. If you need to use it, I'll unlock it for you." But that was the point. I'd never needed to use his phone. It was about the openness, the casual access that came from having nothing to hide. The new boundary felt deliberate, defensive. And the fact that he wouldn't just tell me the code made it worse. The fifth sign was his schedule. Marcus had always worked long hours that came with being a chef. Late nights, weekends, holidays. I'd accepted this from the beginning. But his schedule had been relatively predictable. Tuesday through Saturday, 2 p.m. to midnight, plus extra hours on busy nights or for special events. Starting in July, his schedule became erratic. He'd text me midday saying he had to stay late for inventory, or come in early for a staff meeting, or work on his day off to cover for someone who called in sick. Plausible explanations, all of them. Restaurants are chaotic businesses with high turnover and constant crises. But the frequency was new. He was home less and less. And when he was home, he seemed distracted elsewhere, like his body was present but his mind was still back at the restaurant. Or somewhere else entirely. "Can we please plan something for your next day off?" I asked one evening in August. We haven't done anything together in weeks. Sure, yeah. What do you want to do? I don't know. Dinner. A movie. Literally anything. Sounds good. I'll check my schedule. But he never did. Or when he did, something would come up. The Sunday we'd tentatively planned to go to a museum. He got called in for an emergency. The dishwasher had broken. The Monday we were supposed to have dinner at this new Italian place I'd been wanting to try. He came home exhausted and said he'd spent all day tasting food and couldn't bear to eat out. I tried not to keep score. Relationships aren't transactions. But I couldn't help noticing that he always had energy for work, but never for us. The sixth sign was the sex. Or rather, the lack of it. We'd always had an active sex life, even when things were stressful. Especially after our fights. That angry, passionate reconciliation that left us both breathless and reconnected. But sometime over the summer he started turning me down. I'm exhausted, babe. Rain check. Not tonight, I have to be up early tomorrow. I don't feel great. I think I'm coming down with something. Again, all reasonable excuses. Individually, none of them raised alarms. But collectively, over weeks that turned into months, they formed a pattern. We went from having sex several times a week to once a week, then every other week, then... I couldn't remember the last time. I tried not to take it personally. I knew he was stressed at work, and I'd read enough advice columns to know that mismatched libidos were common in long-term relationships. But it wasn't just about the sex. It was about the intimacy, the connection, the feeling of being desired. When he'd stopped initiating, I'd started. But his rejections were accumulating in my chest like stones, heavy and cold. The seventh sign, the one that should have made me confront everything instead of continuing to rationalize, was his smell. This sounds strange, I know, but let me explain. Marcus smelled like his work. Like garlic and olive oil, like the char of a hot grill, like the yeasty warmth of fresh bread. It clung to his hair and clothes, and I'd grown to love it. It was his signature scent, mixed with the cologne he wore, something woodsy and clean. But one night in September, when he came home later than usual, he smelled different. The restaurant smell was there, but underneath it was something else. Something floral and feminine. Perfume. You smell like perfume, I said without thinking. He'd frozen for just a second. Barely perceptible, but I caught it. Then he laughed. Probably Jessica. She's our new hostess, and she wears enough perfume to choke a horse. She was helping me carry boxes of wine from the storage room. Oh, I'd wanted to ask more. Who was Jessica? Why was she helping him with wine? Why did he smell like he'd been pressed against her? But I didn't. Because asking felt like accusing, and I didn't want to be that wife. The jealous, suspicious one. The one who didn't trust her husband. So I let it go. Added it to the growing list of things that felt wrong but that I couldn't quite justify making a fuss about. After all, restaurants were full of women. He worked with female servers, hostesses, bartenders. It was inevitable that he'd occasionally smell like their perfume. Except it kept happening. Different perfumes, different nights. Always with plausible explanations. Jessica the hostess. Kara the bartender. Melissa from the front desk. So many women. All apparently wearing strong perfume and somehow getting close enough to transfer it to my husband. I started feeling crazy. Was I imagining things? Reading too much into normal workplace interactions? Was my insecurity turning me paranoid? But deep down, in a place I wasn't ready to acknowledge yet, I knew. The perfume was real. The distance was real. The change in him was real. Something was happening, something that explained why he'd stopped fighting with me, why he'd become so agreeable, why he was never fully present anymore. He'd checked out of our marriage. And I was about to find out why. The Sunday we'd tentatively planned to go to a museum, he got called in for an emergency. The dishwasher had broken. The Monday we were supposed to have dinner at this new Italian place I'd been wanting to try. He came home exhausted and said he'd spent all day tasting food and couldn't bear to eat out. I tried not to keep score. Relationships aren't transactions. But I couldn't help noticing that he always had energy for work, but never for us. The sixth sign was the sex. Or rather, the lack of it. We'd always had an active sex life, even when things were stressful. Especially after our fights. That angry, passionate reconciliation that left us both breathless and reconnected. But sometime over the summer he started turning me down. "I'm exhausted, babe." Rain check. "Not tonight, I have to be up early tomorrow." "I don't feel great. I think I'm coming down with something." Again, all reasonable excuses. Individually, none of them raised alarms. But collectively, over weeks that turned into months, they formed a pattern. We went from having sex several times a week to once a week, then every other week, then... I couldn't remember the last time. I tried not to take it personally. I knew he was stressed at work, and I'd read enough advice columns to know that mismatched libidos were common in long-term relationships. But it wasn't just about the sex. It was about the intimacy, the connection, the feeling of being desired. When he'd stopped initiating, I'd started. But his rejections were accumulating in my chest like stones, heavy and cold. The seventh sign, the one that should have made me confront everything instead of continuing to rationalize, was his smell. This sounds strange, I know, but let me explain. Marcus smelled like his work. Like garlic and olive oil. Like the char of a hot grill, like the yeasty warmth of fresh bread. It clung to his hair and clothes, and I'd grown to love it. It was his signature scent, mixed with the cologne he wore, something woodsy and clean. But one night in September, when he came home later than usual, he smelled different. The restaurant smell was there, but underneath it was something else. Something floral and feminine. Perfume. "You smell like perfume," I said without thinking. He'd frozen for just a second. Barely perceptible, but I caught it. Then he laughed. "Probably Jessica. She's our new hostess, and she wears enough perfume to choke a horse. She was helping me carry boxes of wine from the storage room." Oh, I'd wanted to ask more. Who was Jessica? Why was she helping him with wine? Why did he smell like he'd been pressed against her? But I didn't. Because asking felt like accusing, and I didn't want to be that wife. The jealous, suspicious one. The one who didn't trust her husband. So I let it go. Added it to the growing list of things that felt wrong but that I couldn't quite justify making a fuss about. After all, restaurants were full of women. He worked with female servers, hostesses, bartenders. It was inevitable that he'd occasionally smell like their perfume. Except it kept happening. Different perfumes, different nights. Always with plausible explanations. Jessica the hostess. Kara the bartender. Melissa from the front desk. So many women. All apparently wearing strong perfume and somehow getting close enough to transfer it to my husband. I started feeling crazy. Was I imagining things? Reading too much into normal workplace interactions? Was my insecurity turning me paranoid? But deep down, in a place I wasn't ready to acknowledge yet, I knew. The perfume was real. The distance was real. The change in him was real. Something was happening, something that explained why he'd stopped fighting with me, why he'd become so agreeable, why he was never fully present anymore. He'd checked out of our marriage. And I was about to find out why. In early October, Marcus mentioned he had a business dinner on a Thursday night. His usual day off. This was unusual but not unheard of. He'd done vendor meetings and industry events before. But something about the way he said it, casual but prepared, like he'd rehearsed the line, made me pay attention. "What kind of business dinner?" I asked. "Just meeting with some distributors. New farm-to-table supplier we're thinking of working with. On your day off." They could only do Thursday evening. He was getting dressed as he talked, and I noticed he was wearing the blue shirt I'd bought him for our anniversary. The one he said made him look like a Brooks Brothers model. The one he usually saved for special occasions. "That's a nice shirt for a business dinner." "Emma," he sighed. "It's a dinner meeting. I can't show up in my chef's coat." "I didn't say you should. I just... You look nice." "Thank you." He said it like a question, like my compliment was suspicious rather than kind. He came home at 11:30 p.m., and when I asked how it went, he gave me a detailed breakdown of the menu they'd discussed, the pricing structures, the organic certification process. Too detailed. Like he'd prepared the answer too thoroughly. "Did you have fun?" I asked. "It was a business dinner, Emma. It wasn't about fun." But he had this look in his eyes, this satisfied glow that didn't match the boring supplier meeting he'd described. He looked like someone who'd had fun, who'd had a good time, who'd been somewhere exciting. I let it go. But I didn't forget. I handled most of our finances. Marcus was never good with money. He'd spend his entire paycheck on high-end ingredients and cooking equipment if I let him. So I paid our bills, tracked our spending, managed our joint account. This meant I saw all our credit card statements. In November, I was reconciling our expenses for the month when I noticed a charge I didn't recognize. $247 at a hotel in Manhattan. The Hotel Giraffe, a boutique place in the Flatiron District. My heart started pounding. We hadn't stayed at any hotel. We hadn't traveled anywhere. Why would Marcus have a hotel charge? When he came home that night, I had the statement pulled up on my laptop. "What's this?" I asked, turning the screen to show him. He barely glanced at it. "Oh, that. We hosted a wine distributor who came in from California. The restaurant comped his room, and I put it on our card for the points. I'll get reimbursed." "The restaurant doesn't have a corporate card." "They do, but the rewards on ours are better." I cleared it with management. "The reimbursement check should come next week." It was a perfectly reasonable explanation. And the reimbursement check did come, exactly as he said it would. But something bothered me. Why that hotel? It was nice but not especially close to the restaurant. And why hadn't he mentioned it at the time? Why had I only found out when I saw the charge? I searched my memory for any mention of a California distributor visiting. Had he told me about it? I couldn't remember. Maybe I'd been distracted, not paying attention. Maybe he had mentioned it and I'd forgotten. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. Because the alternative, that he'd rented a hotel room in Manhattan for some other reason, was too horrible to contemplate. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I was cleaning out Marcus's car. He'd been complaining that it smelled like old takeout, so I volunteered to do a thorough cleaning while he was at work. I found the usual detritus: empty coffee cups, receipts, parking garage tickets, loose change. But wedged under the passenger seat, I found a small perfume bottle. Tom Ford. Velvet Orchid. Women's perfume. Expensive. I sat in the driver's seat of his car, holding this tiny bottle, trying to think of innocent explanations. Maybe it was a gift for me that he'd forgotten to give me. But my birthday wasn't until March, and Christmas was still a month away. Maybe he'd found it in the parking lot and picked it up, meaning to bring it to Lost and Found? But who would do that? Or maybe, and this was the thought that made my hands shake, it belonged to someone else. Someone who'd been in his car. Someone who'd left her perfume behind because she'd been in his passenger seat enough times to get comfortable, careless. I brought it inside and left it on the kitchen counter. When Marcus came home, I was sitting at the table, waiting. "What's this?" I asked, pointing to the bottle. He looked at it, and for just a second, less than a heartbeat, I saw panic flash across his face. Then it was gone, replaced with mild confusion. "Where did you find that?" "In your car. Under the passenger seat." "Huh. Must be Jessica's. She needed a ride home a couple weeks ago. Her car was in the shop, and she must have dropped it." "Jessica, the hostess." "Yeah. I'll give it back to her tomorrow." "Why didn't you mention giving her a ride?" "Why would I? Emma, it was just a ride. She lives like 10 minutes away, and it was pouring rain. What was I supposed to do, make her take the subway?" Again, reasonable. Helping a coworker wasn't suspicious. But the panic I'd seen, or thought I'd seen, lingered in my mind. And the perfume was expensive. The kind of thing you'd notice dropping. The kind of thing you'd ask about if you'd lost it. Unless you had a reason not to ask. Unless you'd left it deliberately or gotten out of the car in a hurry, distracted by something or someone else. "Can I smell it?" "Yes." Marcus shrugged. "If you want." I picked up the bottle and sprayed a tiny amount on my wrist. The scent hit me immediately. Rich, floral, distinctive. It was the perfume I'd been smelling on him. Not every night, but often enough that I'd noticed. Not a mix of different perfumes from different women, but this one consistently. Velvet orchid. "This is what you've been smelling like," I said quietly. "What? You come home smelling like this perfume?" "Blah. I thought it was from multiple different people at work, but it's just this one. It's her. Jessica." He let out an exasperated sigh. "Emma, I work in a restaurant. I work with a lot of people. If I occasionally smell like someone's perfume, it's because we work in close quarters. That's it. You're reading way too much into this." "Am I?" "Yes, you are." He grabbed the bottle from the counter. "I'll give this back to Jessica tomorrow and ask her to please keep her perfume in her purse where it belongs." "Okay. Can we please not turn this into a thing?" But it already was a thing. It was several things, piling up like evidence I wasn't ready to prosecute. Not yet. It was 2 a.m. on a Saturday night in early December. Marcus hadn't come home yet, which wasn't unusual for a Saturday. The restaurant was always slammed on weekends, and cleanup took hours. But usually he texted me with an ETA, let me know when he was leaving. Tonight, nothing. I'd texted him at midnight. "You okay?" No response. I texted again at 1:30 a.m. Getting worried. "Let me know you're alive." Still nothing. At 2:15 a.m. I called. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. Called again. Same thing. Now I was genuinely worried. What if something had happened? What if he'd been in an accident on the way home? What if there'd been a robbery at the restaurant? I was about to call the restaurant's main line when my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Sorry, crazy night. Phone died. Leaving now." Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by suspicion. His phone had been on when I'd called 2 minutes ago. It had rung, not gone straight to voicemail. So his phone wasn't dead. He just hadn't answered. He came home 45 minutes later. A drive that should have taken 15 minutes, maybe 20 with late-night traffic. When I pointed this out, he said he'd stopped to get gas. At 2 a.m. The tank was empty, Emma. What did you want me to do, coast home on fumes? Everything he said was technically believable. But the pieces didn't quite fit together. The phone that was dead but had been ringing. The drive that took too long. The complete lack of apology for not responding and making me worry. He went straight to bed, falling asleep immediately or pretending to. I lay awake until dawn, my mind spinning through scenarios I didn't want to consider. I'm not proud of this, but I started checking his social media. I'd never felt the need to before. We followed each other, liked each other's posts, tagged each other in funny videos. It was just part of our normal digital life together. But one evening in mid-December, while he was in the shower, I went through his Instagram. I looked at his following list, scrolling through the accounts he'd recently added. Most were other chefs, food bloggers, restaurant industry accounts. But one caught my eye. Jessica Vance. Private account. Profile picture was a blonde woman in sunglasses. Bio. Living my best life, glowing star. I clicked on her profile. Marcus followed her, she followed him back. She had 342 followers, nothing unusual. I couldn't see her posts because her account was private. This had to be Jessica, the hostess. How many Jessicas could work at his restaurant? And why had he never mentioned that they followed each other on Instagram? Why had he never shown me her account or tagged her in work-related posts? I went back to Marcus's profile and started scrolling through his posts. In October, he'd posted a picture of a new dish he'd created. Scallops with some kind of citrus reduction. Had gotten maybe 20 likes. But one of those likes was from @Jessica Vance. I scrolled further back. There she was again, liking a post from September. In August, going back through months of his feed, I found her likes scattered like breadcrumbs, evidence of her presence in his digital life. I clicked on his tagged photos. Most were from the restaurant's official account, showing Marcus in the kitchen or plating food. But there was one from 3 months ago, posted by @Jessica Vance. I couldn't see it, her account was private, but I could see the caption preview. Best boss ever, fireman cook best boss. So she worked under him. And she'd posted about him, called him the best boss. With fire emojis. My hands were trembling as I set the phone down. I heard the shower turn off, and I quickly grabbed my laptop, pretending to work on something as Marcus came into the bedroom, towel around his waist. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Fine. Just answering some emails." He got dressed and came to sit on the bed behind me, kissing the top of my head. "Don't work too late." It was a sweet gesture, the kind of casual affection that had been absent for months. It should have made me feel better. Instead, it made me feel worse. Like he was performing the role of good husband, checking boxes, maintaining appearances. Who was he really kissing goodnight in his mind? The truth came on a Tuesday night, 2 weeks before Christmas. Marcus was supposed to be working a double shift. One of the other chefs had called in sick with the flu, and Marcus had volunteered to cover. He'd left at noon and said he wouldn't be home until after midnight. I'd taken the week off from work, end-of-year vacation days I needed to use or lose. I'd spent the day doing mindless tasks, cleaning, organizing, rewrapping gifts I wasn't satisfied with. Anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from spinning through the catalog of suspicions I'd been collecting for months. Around 8 p.m. I decided to make myself dinner. I opened the fridge and realized we were out of eggs. There was a bodega 2 blocks away that was open late. I threw on a coat and walked through the December cold, my breath clouding in the air. The bodega was bright and overheated, a relief from the bitter wind outside. I grabbed a carton of eggs and was waiting in line to pay when my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus's restaurant's Instagram account. They'd posted a new story. I clicked on it without thinking, just idle curiosity about what special they were running. The video showed the restaurant's dining room, busy and festive with Christmas decorations. The caption, "Packed house tonight. Thank you for making this holiday season magical." But my eyes weren't on the decorations or the happy diners. They were on the timestamp, posted 6 minutes ago. And in the background of the video, visible for just a few seconds, was the open kitchen. The kitchen where Marcus should have been working his double shift. The kitchen that should have been short-staffed and chaotic because someone had called in sick. Except the kitchen looked normal, adequately staffed. And Marcus wasn't in it. My heart started pounding. I paid for the eggs in a daze and walked back to our apartment, my mind racing. Maybe he was in the back in the prep area, not visible in the video. Maybe he'd stepped away for a break at the exact moment they were filming. Maybe. But I knew. In that moment, standing on a Brooklyn sidewalk in the cold December night, holding a carton of eggs, I knew. He wasn't at work. He'd lied about working a double shift, which meant he was somewhere else. With someone else. I walked home on autopilot, my legs carrying me while my brain tried to process. What should I do? Confront him over text. Call him and demand to know where he really was. Wait for him to come home and catch him in the lie. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. Something I'd sworn I'd never do because it felt like a violation of privacy, a betrayal of trust. But what trust was left to betray? I went to our home office, where Marcus kept his laptop. He usually took it to work for inventory and scheduling, but I'd noticed it sitting on the desk that morning when he left. He must have forgotten it in his rush to get out the door, to get to wherever he was really going. The laptop was sleeping. I opened it and it prompted me for a password. My hands shook as I typed his old phone passcode. His birthday. Didn't work. I tried our anniversary. Nothing. I tried his mom's birthday, his favorite number, the restaurant's address. Nothing. I was about to give up when I thought of one more thing. Jessica. I typed JCZ. The screen unlocked. Name. His password was her name. I sat there staring at the desktop background. A photo of us from our wedding day, both of us laughing, my hand in his, and felt something inside me crack. Not break. Not yet. But crack like ice under pressure, fault lines spreading. His email was already open. I clicked on the inbox, and the first unread message was from @Jessica Vance. Subject line. Missing you already. Opened it. Marcus. I can't believe I have to wait until Thursday to see you again. Tonight was perfect. You are perfect. I keep replaying everything in my head, and I can't stop smiling. I know we have to be careful, especially with the holidays coming up and Emma being off work, but I need you to know that this is real for me. What we have is real. I'm not just some fling or distraction. Love you. I know we haven't said it yet, but I'm saying it now. Love you. And I'm willing to wait for you to figure things out at home. But please, baby, figure them out soon. Because I don't know how much longer I can share you. I read it 3 times. Then I read it again. Each word was a knife, sharp and precise, carving away pieces of my world. Tonight was perfect. She'd seen him tonight. While I thought he was at work, he'd been with her. Having a perfect night. Love you. She loved him. And apparently, they'd been together long enough that saying, I love you was a milestone. Something they hadn't done yet but were ready for. I'm willing to wait for you to figure things out at home. She knew about me. Knew he was married. Was waiting for him to leave me. I clicked on his sent folder, found his last message to her from that afternoon. Tonight can't come soon enough. I'll text you when I park. Can't wait to taste that pumpkin cheesecake you've been promising me. And you. Definitely you. Pumpkin cheesecake. She baked for him. They had inside jokes, pet names, a whole relationship I knew nothing about. I started scrolling through their messages, going back in time, watching their relationship unfold in reverse. Messages from last week, last month, September, August. The correspondence went back to July. 5 months. They'd been together for 5 months. The messages painted a picture of a complete relationship. They didn't just hook up in hotel rooms, though they did that too, judging from the texts arranging meetings at the Hotel Giraffe and other places in Manhattan. They talked about their days, shared jokes, made plans. She sent him pictures of sunsets and cute dogs and herself in various states of undress. He sent her pictures of dishes he was creating and called her his inspiration. In September, "You make me feel alive again. I'd forgotten what this felt like." In October, "I know this is complicated, but when I'm with you, nothing else matters." In November, "She's getting suspicious. I need to be more careful. But God, Jay, I don't want to be careful. I want to be with you all the time." Me. I was she in his secret correspondence. Not Emma, not his wife. Just she. The obstacle to his happiness. I found the messages from the night of the business dinner in October. He'd sent Jessica a picture of his blue anniversary shirt. "Wearing this for you tonight, beautiful." Her response: "You're going to look so good across the candlelight from me. I can't wait to finally go on a real date with you, even if we have to pretend we're business associates if anyone asks." There were selfies of them together. Restaurant selfies, hotel room selfies, car selfies. Pictures of them kissing, touching, looking at each other the way Marcus used to look at me. The way I thought he still looked at me, on the rare occasions when he seemed fully present. I found messages about me. About our marriage. Jessica in August. "Does she know how lucky she is? Does she appreciate you?" Marcus: "I don't think she even sees me anymore. We're like roommates who occasionally share a bed. There's no passion, no connection. We just exist in the same space." It was like reading about strangers. Was that really how he saw us? Had our fights, which I'd thought meant something, meant nothing to him? Or worse, had they driven him away, pushed him toward someone easier, sweeter, less contentious? I found the message he'd sent her in September, right around the time I'd noticed the perfume. "Had to explain to E why I smell like you." She noticed. "I think she's suspicious. We need to be more careful. Maybe I should start working later shifts so it makes sense that I'm not home." So his schedule changes weren't random. They were calculated. Designed to give him more time with Jessica while making it seem work-related. I found a message from November after I'd asked about his phone passcode. "E is asking questions about my phone. I changed my password to your name. Everything important is protected by your name, by you." And I found the most recent messages from today, planning tonight's rendezvous. Marcus: "Told E I'm working a double. Paolo called in sick, so it's a perfect cover. I'll pick you up at 6. Jessica: "Perfect. My roommate is gone for the week, so we have the apartment to ourselves. I'm making your favorite dinner." Him: "You're amazing. How did I get so lucky?" Her: "We're lucky. This is fate. We're meant to be together." They had a routine. A whole system of lies and arrangements. She called him M. He called her J. They had plans for the future. Vague plans, but plans nonetheless. She'd messaged him last week asking if he thought they'd be together next Christmas. Like officially. And he'd responded with, "I hope so, baby. I'm working on it. Working on it. Working on leaving me. Working on dismantling our marriage so he could be with her, officially, without having to hide." I don't know how long I sat there, reading through months of betrayal. Hours maybe. Long enough that my back ached and my eyes burned. Long enough to read every single message, look at every single photo, absorb every single detail of his other life. The life that had been running parallel to ours since July. The life that had slowly consumed him, leaving less and less of him available for me. The life that explained everything. His distance, his agreeableness, his distraction. He hadn't been working more. He'd been with her, building something new while letting us deteriorate. When I finally closed the laptop, it was almost midnight. Marcus would be home soon, ready to slip into bed and pretend he'd been at work all night. Ready to kiss me goodnight with the same mouth that had been kissing her. Ready to lie to my face while he still smelled like her perfume, her shampoo, her apartment. I sat in the dark office, waiting. Outside I could hear the city sounds. Cars, sirens, the distant rumble of the subway. Normal sounds of a normal night. But nothing was normal anymore. Nothing would ever be normal again. My hands had stopped shaking. I felt oddly calm, the way you might feel in the eye of a hurricane. The storm was coming, the confrontation, the devastation, the ending. But for this moment, in this quiet darkness, I just sat with the truth. Marcus didn't stop fighting with me because he'd become more mature or agreeable. He stopped fighting because he'd already left. His body still came home, still slept in our bed, still went through the motions. But his heart, his passion, his attention, his love, all of that was somewhere else. With someone else. With Jessica, who was 24 years old according to her email signature. 10 years younger than me. A hostess at his restaurant who wore perfume called Velvet Orchid and made pumpkin cheesecake and took selfies with her mouth open in laughter and looked at my husband like he hung the moon. I heard his key in the door at 12:47 a.m. Heard him come in quietly, thinking I was asleep. Heard him go to the kitchen, probably to dispose of evidence, make sure his story was straight. Heard him walk toward our bedroom. I stood up and turned on the office light. "Emma!" His voice carried surprise, maybe a hint of concern. "Why are you up? You scared me." I walked out of the office. He was standing in the hallway, still in his coat, looking tired and guilty and caught, though he didn't know it yet. "How was work?" he asked. "Exhausting. Paolo being out really killed us. I'm beat." He started taking off his coat. "You didn't have to wait up. I saw the restaurant's Instagram story tonight." He froze, coat half off. "What?" "They posted a video at 8 p.m. You weren't there, Marcus. The kitchen wasn't short-staffed. You weren't working a double." My voice was steady, almost detached. "So where were you?" The color drained from his face. "Emma, don't insult me by lying again. I read the emails. All of them. I know about Jessica. I know about the hotel rooms, the business dinners, the perfume in your car. I know everything." He stood there, coat hanging off one arm, looking like a man watching his life collapse in real time. His mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. 5 months. I continued. "You've been sleeping with her for 5 months. You've been lying to me for 5 months. You stopped fighting with me because you were too busy fighting for her. For what you have with her. Emma, please. Is it serious?" he asked. "Or is she just a fling? Some midlife crisis fuck to make you feel young again?" "It's not, I didn't." He ran his hands through his hair. A gesture of frustration I'd seen 1,000 times. "I didn't mean for it to happen. But it did happen. It's been happening. Still happening. You saw her tonight. You told me you were at work, but you were with her." "Yes." The word came out broken, defeated. "Yes, I was with her." And there it was. The confession I already knew but that he'd never said out loud. The truth that made it all real. "Do you love her?" I needed to know. Needed to understand what I was competing with, what I'd already lost to. He looked at me and I saw tears in his eyes. "I don't know. Maybe. I think so." Each word was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. "And me. Do you still love me? Emma?" He stepped toward me and I stepped back. "It's complicated. That's not an answer, Marcus. Do you love me? I'll always care about you. That's not what I asked. He looked down at his feet, at the floor, anywhere but at me. And in that avoidance I had my answer. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out. Pack a bag and get out. Go stay with your parents, go to a hotel, go to her place. I don't care. But you're not sleeping here tonight. Emma, we need to talk about this. No, you don't. Not tonight. Tonight you need to leave. And tomorrow you need to figure out what you want, because I'm not going to sit here and wait while you decide between us like we're menu items you're trying to choose between. I never meant to hurt you. He was crying now, tears running down his face. I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. You stopped fighting with me, Marcus. Do you realize that? For months I thought something was wrong because you'd stopped arguing with me about stupid things. The thermostat, the dishes, what movie to watch. You just agreed with everything, went along with whatever I wanted. And I thought maybe you were depressed or stressed or I don't know what. But you weren't depressed. You just didn't care anymore. You'd already checked out. You'd already moved on. That's not true. It is true. You stopped fighting because I didn't matter enough to fight with anymore. And that hurts worse than the cheating, Marcus. The cheating I can maybe understand. Attraction, temptation, whatever. But the apathy. The way you just went through the motions with me while giving her everything. That's what really destroyed me. He stood there, shoulders shaking, crying like I'd never seen him cry. And I felt nothing. Not sympathy, not anger, not even satisfaction at seeing him hurt. Just numbness. The shock had worn off, and in its place was this vast emptiness. Pack your bag, I said again. Go. He went to our bedroom. I heard drawers opening, the closet sliding, the rustle of clothes and the zip of a suitcase. I stayed in the hallway, not trusting myself to enter our room, to see him touching our things, to witness him packing up pieces of the life we'd shared. 20 minutes later, he came out with a duffel bag and his laptop case. He paused by the front door, one last look at me, one last chance to say something that might matter. I really am sorry, Emma. I know, I said. But sorry doesn't change anything. Sorry doesn't give me back the last 5 months of my life, wondering what was wrong with me, why I couldn't make you happy, why you'd become a stranger. Sorry doesn't undo the lies or erase the pictures of you with her, or explain how you could do this to me when you promised, when you stood in front of our family and friends and God and promised to love me. I did love you. I do. You loved the idea of me. The version of me that existed before you met her. But you don't love me now. You don't even like me now. So please just go. We'll figure out the rest later. He left. The door closed behind him with a soft click that felt too quiet for the ending of a marriage. Shouldn't it slam? Shouldn't there be some dramatic conclusion, some final punctuation mark? Instead there was just silence. And me, standing alone in the hallway of our apartment, surrounded by all the things we'd accumulated together. Furniture we'd picked out, photos we'd taken, a life we'd built that was now just over. I walked back to the office and opened his laptop one more time. I forwarded every email between him and Jessica to my personal email address. I took screenshots of the worst messages. I documented everything. Not because I wanted to hurt him or punish him, but because I knew that later, days or weeks from now, when the shock wore off and the pain really set in, I might doubt myself. Might wonder if I'd overreacted, if it was really that bad, if maybe I should have tried to work it out. I needed evidence. Proof that this was real, that my decision was justified, that I wasn't crazy for ending my marriage over what he might try to minimize as a mistake or a rough patch. When I was done, I closed the laptop and left it on his desk. Then I went to our bedroom. My bedroom now, I supposed, and crawled into bed fully clothed. I didn't cry. couldn't cry. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling, watching the shadows from streetlights play across the walls, trying to comprehend how I'd woken up that morning as a married woman and was going to sleep as what? A separated woman. An almost divorced woman. A woman whose husband loved someone else. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. I'm at my parents'. Sorry. Please don't hate me. I didn't respond. What was there to say? I didn't hate him. Hatred requires passion, requires caring enough to maintain that intense emotion. And I felt nothing. That's what he'd done to us, to me. He'd eroded away my feelings so gradually that when the truth finally came, there was nothing left to feel. No rage, no heartbreak, no despair. Just this hollow, echoing emptiness where a marriage used to be. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay in bed, staring into darkness, my mind replaying every moment, every clue, every lie. The sun rose over Brooklyn at 7:14 a.m., pale December light creeping through the blinds, and I still hadn't moved. My phone had been buzzing periodically through the night. Messages from Marcus, each one increasingly desperate. 2:34 a.m. Please talk to me. 3:12 a.m. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But we can work through this. 4:47 a.m. I made a mistake. Huge, terrible mistake. But I love you, Emma. Please believe that. 5:30 a.m. Are you awake? Can we talk? I read them all without responding. Each message felt like it was from a stranger. This man who suddenly remembered he loved me, who wanted to work things out, who was sorry and desperate and pleading. Where had he been for the last 5 months? Where had this urgency been when I'd been trying to connect with him, trying to understand why he'd become so distant? Now that he'd been caught, he wanted to fight. Now he had opinions, feelings, something to say. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so devastating. At 8 a.m. I forced myself out of bed. Made coffee. Stared at it without drinking it. Tried to think about what to do next. I needed to tell someone. Not everyone. I couldn't face the humiliation of announcing my failed marriage to the world. But someone. I picked up my phone and called my sister Lauren. Emma. It's early. You okay? The concern in her voice broke something open inside me. Suddenly I was crying. Huge gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep and primal, months of tension and denial and worry finally released. Emma, what's wrong? Talk to me. Marcus. I couldn't get the words out past the tears. There's someone else. What? Honey, oh no. Are you sure? I'm sure. I found all the messages. It's been going on for months. He was with her last night while I thought he was at work. That motherfucker. Lauren's anger was immediate and fierce. Exactly what I needed. Where is he? Is he there? Do you want me to come over? He's at his parents'. I kicked him out last night. And yes, please come. If you can. I'll be there in an hour. Don't move. Don't do anything. Just wait for me. True to her word, Lauren arrived at my door 63 minutes later with coffee from my favorite cafe, a bag of bagels, and the kind of righteous fury only a protective older sister can muster. She hugged me for a long time in the doorway, and I cried into her shoulder, soaking her coat with tears and snot and grief. Tell me everything, she said when we finally moved inside. So I did. I walked her through the whole story, from the first signs I'd missed to finding the emails last night. She listened without interrupting, her jaw getting tighter and tighter as the details accumulated. 5 months, she said when I finished. 5 months of lying to your face. Of making you feel crazy for noticing things were wrong. That's not just cheating, Emma. That's gaslighting. That's systematic betrayal. I feel so stupid. All the signs were there and I just... No. She grabbed my hand. Don't do that. Don't blame yourself for trusting your husband. That's what marriage is supposed to be. Trust. He's the one who broke that. He's the one who lied. None of this is your fault. But it felt like my fault. Felt like if I'd been different, less argumentative, more agreeable, easier to love, maybe he wouldn't have needed Jessica. Wouldn't have needed someone younger and sweeter and less complicated. What are you going to do? Lauren asked. I don't know. Divorce, I guess. I mean, it's over. Right. This isn't something you come back from. Most people don't, she said carefully. But that's your choice to make. I'll support you either way. You think I should consider staying? I think you should do what feels right for you. Not what I think, not what anyone else thinks. What do you want? I thought about that question. What did I want? A month ago, I would have said I wanted my husband back, wanted to understand what was wrong, wanted to fix whatever had broken between us. But now, knowing the truth, what did I want? I want to not hurt anymore, I said quietly. I want to not feel like I wasn't enough. I want to understand why he stopped loving me. You might never get those answers, Em. Not real ones. People cheat for all kinds of reasons, and none of them are really about the person they're cheating on. Then what are they about? Themselves. Their own insecurities, their own needs, their own selfishness. Marcus stopped fighting with you because he'd already emotionally left the marriage. That's not about you being deficient. That's about him being a coward who couldn't be honest about what he wanted. We talked for hours. Lauren made me eat a bagel even though I had no appetite. She helped me make a list of practical things I needed to do. Find a divorce lawyer, figure out finances, decide about the apartment, tell my parents, tell friends. One step at a time, she said. You don't have to do everything today. Today you just have to survive. Around noon my phone rang. Marcus. I stared at it and Lauren looked at me. Do you want to answer? I don't know. You don't have to. Not until you're ready. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later there was a notification. New voicemail. I put it on speaker so Lauren could hear. Emma, please. I know you're angry and you have every right to be. But we need to talk. I need to explain. I need you to understand that I never meant for this to happen. Jessica and I, it happened. She made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. Do. I'm so confused, Emma. I don't know what I want. I don't know what to do. Please call me back. Please don't give up on us. We've been together for 7 years. That has to mean something. Please. Lauren's face was incredulous. Did he really just say he doesn't know what he wants? Are you fucking kidding me? At least he's being honest now, I guess. Honest. Emma, honest would have been 5 months ago when he first developed feelings for someone else. Honest would have been coming to you and saying, I'm struggling, I'm attracted to someone, I need help. This isn't honest. This is damage control. He got caught, and now he's trying to figure out which woman is the better option. Maybe. No, maybe. Listen to what he said. She made me feel something. Not I betrayed your trust. Not I destroyed our marriage. But she made me feel something. He's blaming his feelings like he had no control. And then he has the audacity to say he doesn't know what he wants. Well, he wants to keep both of you around while he decides. That's what he wants. I knew she was right. But part of me, the part that had been with Marcus for 7 years, that had married him and built a life with him, wanted to believe that the confusion was real. That maybe he did still love me. That maybe we could fix this. I need to see him, I said. I need to hear it from him in person. Lauren looked concerned but nodded. Okay. But not alone. I'm coming with you. Lauren. Not negotiable. I'll wait in the car if you want, but I'm not letting you face him alone when you're this vulnerable. Called him back. He answered on the first ring. Emma, thank God. We need to talk, I said, my voice flat. In person. Where are you? Still at my parents'. They went out for the day. Can you come here? No. I'm not coming to your parents' house. Meet me at the apartment in 2 hours. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for. I hung up. 2 hours later, Lauren dropped me off in front of our building. I'll be right here, she said. Text me if you need me. And Emma, remember that you're not the one who needs to apologize or explain. He is. Marcus was already waiting in the apartment when I walked in. He looked terrible. Red eyes, rumpled clothes, like he hadn't slept either. When he saw me, he stood up from the couch. His expression hopeful and desperate. Emma. Don't, I said, holding up my hand. Don't hug me. Don't touch me. Just talk. He sat back down and I took a chair across from him. Physical distance felt crucial. If he touched me, I might crumble. Or I might hit him. I wasn't sure which. I don't even know where to start, he said. How about the beginning? When did it start with Jessica? July. Early July. She started working at the restaurant in June, and we were just friendly at first. Then one night we stayed late after closing just talking. And it felt easy. Natural. She listened to me. I listened to you. I know, but it was different. With you, everything became a debate. Even when I was just trying to share something, you'd challenge me on it, want to analyze it, turn it into a discussion. With Jessica, she just listened, accepted what I said, made me feel heard. So I made you feel unheard by actually engaging with what you said. And she made you feel heard by nodding along? He flinched. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Marcus. Fair would have been you telling me you felt unheard instead of finding someone else to hear you. You're right. You're absolutely right. I should have talked to you. I should have tried to work on things. But Emma, we weren't working. Haven't been for a while. Admit it. We were fighting. That's not the same as not working. We've always fought. But it got worse. Every conversation was a battle. Every little thing turned into a debate. I was exhausted, Emma. Exhausted from always having to defend myself, always having to argue my point, never getting to just be. So you found someone who would let you just be while lying to your wife for 5 months. I didn't plan it. I didn't wake up one day and decide to cheat. Just evolved. One conversation became another, became coffee, became drinks, became, I don't need the play-by-play. I read the emails, remember? He closed his eyes. Right. God, I can't imagine what that must have been like. You called me she, in your messages to her. Like I wasn't even a person. Just an obstacle. I'm sorry. Stop saying you're sorry. I need more than sorry. I need to understand. You said in your voicemail that you don't know what you want. Is that true? He was quiet for a long moment. Part of me wants to fix this. Wants to work on us, go to therapy, figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. That part of me loves you and values what we built together. And the other part is in love with Jessica. The other part feels alive with her in a way I haven't felt in years. The other part wants to see where that relationship could go if it wasn't hidden, if it could be real. Each word was a knife, but at least they were honest knives. So you're asking me to wait while you figure out which woman you want. I'm asking you to give me time to sort through this. I know that's not fair to you. It's not. It's incredibly unfair. You want me to sit here while you continue seeing her, comparing us, deciding which life you prefer?
Well,
I'm not going to do that. Emma. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to file for divorce. You can contest it if you want, but I don't think you will because I don't think you actually want to stay married to me. I think you want permission to leave without being the bad guy. Well, you don't get that. You are the bad guy. You don't get to cheat for 5 months and then have me wait around while you figure things out. Don't say that. Don't say divorce. He was crying again. We can fix this. We can go to therapy, we can. You'd have to end things with Jessica for therapy to work. Are you willing to do that right now? Today. Never see her or contact her again. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. You can't even commit to ending it. That tells me everything I need to know. I'm confused, Emma. Can you blame me? I have feelings for 2 people. That doesn't make me a monster. No, having feelings for 2 people doesn't make you a monster. Lying about it for 5 months makes you a coward. Gaslighting me when I suspected something was wrong makes you cruel. Asking me to wait while you decide who you love more makes you selfish. You're not a monster, Marcus. But you're not a good man either. Not anymore. Please don't do this. He got up, tried to come toward me, and I stood up, putting more distance between us. I already did it. The moment you slept with her, we were done. I just didn't know it yet. What about 7 years? What about our wedding vows? What about giving me a chance to make this right? You had chances. Hundreds of them. Every time I asked if something was wrong. Every time I asked about your late nights or your phone or why you smelled like perfume. Every single one of those moments was a chance to tell me the truth. You chose to lie. You chose her. So now I'm choosing me. I walked to the door. I'll stay somewhere else for a few days while you pack up your things. Take what's yours. We can figure out the apartment and the furniture and all that later. But I want you out by Friday. Where will you go? That's not your concern anymore. Emma. His voice broke. I love you. I know I fucked up. I know I hurt you. But I do love you. I turned back to look at him one last time. This man I'd met at a party 7 years ago, who I'd argued with about risotto and married on an October day and built a life with. This stranger wearing my husband's face, crying tears that came too late to matter. Maybe you do, I said quietly. But it's not enough. Love should have stopped you from hurting me in the first place. Love should have made you fight for us instead of fight with me. Love should have been enough to keep you faithful. Whatever you feel for me now, Marcus, it's too little too late. I deserved better than this. And somewhere out there is a version of me who will find it. I walked out down the stairs, out to where Lauren was waiting in her car. I got in, and she looked at me with concerned eyes. How'd it go? It's over, I said. It's really over. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Where to? Your place, if that's okay. I can't be here right now. My place it is. And Emma, you did the right thing. Then why does it hurt so much? Because endings always hurt, even when they're necessary. Especially when they're necessary. As we drove away from our apartment, from the life I'd thought was mine, I looked back one more time. Marcus was standing in the window, watching me leave. And for a moment I felt the pull to go back. Try one more time. To see if maybe, possibly, we could salvage something from the wreckage. But I didn't. Because I'd finally realized something crucial. Marcus hadn't stopped fighting with me because he'd grown or matured or become more agreeable. He'd stopped fighting because he'd already given up. And I deserved someone who wouldn't give up. Who would fight with me and for me. Who would choose me every day, not just on the days when it was easy. I'd lost Marcus. But maybe, just maybe, I'd found myself. I stayed with Lauren for 3 weeks. Marcus moved out of our apartment as requested, leaving behind most of the furniture and taking only his personal belongings. We communicated through lawyers and short civil text messages about logistics. The holidays came and went in a blur. I told my parents 2 days after the confrontation. My mom cried. My dad offered to have a talk with Marcus, which I declined. I told my close friends in small groups over coffee or wine, each conversation exhausting and humiliating and necessary. Everyone was shocked. "You two seemed so happy," they all said, and I wanted to laugh. We'd seemed happy because they'd only seen the edited version, the highlights reel. They hadn't seen the distance, the decline, the slow death of connection that I'd been living with for months. The question everyone asked was, "Will you take him back if he chooses you?" And the answer, which surprised me, was no. Because here's what I realized during those 3 weeks at Lauren's, sleeping on her couch and crying through my days off. Even if Marcus came back, even if he ended things with Jessica and begged for forgiveness and committed to therapy, we'd still be broken. The foundation was cracked. The trust was gone. And I would spend the rest of my life wondering if he was telling the truth, if he was really at work, if he really loved me, or if he was just settling because things hadn't worked out with Jessica. I would be the backup plan, the fallback position, the safe choice after the exciting choice didn't pan out. And I deserved better than that. I filed for divorce on January 3rd. New year, new life. The lawyer I hired was competent and kind, walking me through the process without judgment. New York had no-fault divorce, which meant I didn't have to prove Marcus's adultery, just that our marriage was irretrievably broken for at least 6 months. That part was easy. It had been broken much longer than 6 months. I just hadn't known it. Marcus didn't contest the filing. His lawyer reached out about dividing assets, and we began the tedious process of untangling 7 years of merged lives. The apartment was in both our names, but I wanted to keep it. Couldn't bear the thought of leaving, of letting him and his choices drive me out of my home. We agreed I'd buy out his half over time. The savings account got split 50-50. The furniture and belongings got divided based on what each person brought into the relationship or cared about more. It was all remarkably civil, which somehow made it worse. Where was the passion? Where was the fighting? We'd spent 7 years arguing about everything, and now that we were ending our marriage, we were doing it with polite emails and reasonable compromises. I heard through mutual friends that Marcus was officially dating Jessica. They'd gone public on social media in early January. Him posting a picture of them together with the caption, "New Year, New Chapter." Some of our friends congratulated him. Others unfollowed him. I'd blocked him on everything, so I didn't see it firsthand. But people told me, thinking I'd want to know. Or maybe thinking I should know. Hurt. Course it hurt. But it also validated my decision. He'd moved on so quickly because he'd already moved on months ago. His grief period had been while we were still together, while I was still trying to figure out what was wrong. By the time I discovered the truth, he was already halfway out the door. In February I started therapy. I needed to understand my role in what had happened. Not to blame myself, but to grow. My therapist helped me see that my contentious communication style had been my way of engaging, of showing interest, of feeling connected. But Marcus had experienced it as criticism, as never being able to just be accepted. We'd had incompatible conflict styles, and instead of recognizing that and working on it, we'd let it drive us apart. Did I push him to Jessica? I asked during one session. You didn't push him anywhere, my therapist said firmly. He made a choice. He could have come to you about feeling criticized. He could have suggested couples therapy. He could have ended the relationship before starting a new one. Instead, he chose deception. That's on him, not you. But I'd learned something valuable. In my next relationship, if there was a next relationship, I'd need to be more mindful of how I engaged. More aware of the difference between healthy debate and constant criticism. More willing to just listen sometimes, to accept without analyzing. I'd need to grow. And maybe that was Marcus's final gift to me, though he hadn't meant it as one. The lesson that pushed me to become better. The divorce was finalized in July, almost exactly a year after Marcus had first slept with Jessica. The timing felt symbolic, though I don't know if he noticed. I heard through the grapevine that he and Jessica had moved in together. We're talking about marriage. Still stung, but less than before. Grief is like that. It comes in waves, intense and then receding, and slowly the waves get smaller and further apart until one day you realize you've made it through a whole week without crying. I threw myself into work, taking on bigger projects, staying late. My creative director noticed and promoted me to senior designer. I redecorated the apartment, getting rid of furniture that reminded me too much of Marcus, bringing in pieces that were just mine. I started taking kickboxing classes, Lauren's suggestion, and discovered I was good at hitting things. The physical release helped. I dated a little tentatively. Coffee dates that went nowhere, a brief fling with a guy from a dating app, a setup from a friend that fizzled after 3 dates. Nothing serious. I wasn't ready yet. But I was working on being ready, on believing that I was still worth loving, still capable of building something good with someone. Marcus sent me a letter in September, forwarded through my lawyer. It was 3 pages long, handwritten, full of apologies and explanations and regrets. He said Jessica wasn't what he'd thought she'd be once they were actually together, that the fantasy had been better than the reality. He said he'd been a fool. He said he still loved me, would always love me, and if I ever wanted to try again, he'd be there. I read it once, cried for 10 minutes, then put it in a drawer. Not to save it but to forget about it. Maybe someday I'd look at it again, when enough time had passed that it would feel like ancient history. But not now. Now I needed to keep moving forward. A year and a half after the discovery, I'm in a different place. Not completely healed. I don't think you completely heal from betrayal like this, but better. Stronger. More whole. I've learned to be alone without being lonely. I've rebuilt my sense of self outside of being Marcus's wife. I've forgiven myself for the things I got wrong and accepted that some things were simply his failures, not mine. I still think about him sometimes. Wonder if he's happy. Wonder if he thinks about me. Wonder if Jessica knows that she got a man who's capable of cheating, and whether she worries that he'll do it to her too. They say once a cheater, always a cheater, but I don't know if that's true. Maybe Marcus learned his lesson. Maybe he's a better man for her than he was for me. Or maybe, like my therapist suggested, he's the same man and she's just still in the honeymoon phase, not yet seeing the cracks. I don't wish him ill. I don't wish him well either. I just wish him away. Out of my story. No longer relevant to my narrative. I've started writing about my experience, thinking maybe I'll turn it into a blog or maybe just keep it for myself. But getting the words out helps. Naming what happened helps. Claiming my story instead of letting it claim me helps. And I've learned something crucial about relationships. Fighting isn't the problem. Every couple fights. It's how you fight that matters. It's whether you fight fair, whether you fight to understand rather than to win, whether you fight because you care enough to engage. Marcus stopped fighting with me because he'd stopped caring. That was the real betrayal. Not Jessica. Not the lies, though those mattered. But the indifference. The way he'd let me become invisible to him, irrelevant, Not worth the effort of arguing about the thermostat or the dishes or what movie to watch. I deserve someone who thinks I'm worth fighting with, who thinks I'm worth fighting for, who will meet me in the ring every day and spar with me and challenge me and push back when I'm wrong and celebrate when I'm right and never, ever just agree to whatever I say because they've stopped caring. I deserve passion, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's messy, even when it means staying up late arguing about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It absolutely is. Marcus taught me what I don't want. Now I'm figuring out what I do want. And that's enough for now. That's more than enough. Looking back now, I can see the entire trajectory with painful clarity. The escalation of red flags, the mounting evidence, the moment of discovery. It all feels inevitable from this vantage point, like watching a Greek tragedy where you know how it ends but you're powerless to stop it. But when you're living it, you can't see the pattern. You only see the individual moments, and each moment is explicable, rational, dismissible. That's how betrayal works. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts, each one small enough to ignore until you look down and realize you're bleeding out. When Marcus stopped fighting with me, I lost him. I knew it then, somewhere deep in my gut, but I couldn't admit it to myself. Because admitting it would mean confronting all the scary questions. Why? What had I done wrong? What was I missing? Was I not enough? The answer I know now is that it wasn't about enough. It was about incompatibility. About two people who loved each other but couldn't live with each other well. About passion that looked like connection but was really just friction. About a man who checked out instead of speaking up and a woman who fought to engage while her opponent had already left the ring. The story of my marriage is the story of falling in love with intensity and mistaking it for intimacy. Of believing that fighting meant caring right up until it didn't. Of learning too late that silence isn't peace. Sometimes it's just absence. But it's also a story of survival. Of discovering that I'm stronger than I thought. That I can lose a husband and a marriage and a future I'd planned and still be okay. Still be whole. Still be worthy of love and connection and partnership. If you're reading this or listening to this, if you're watching this story on screen somewhere, and you're recognizing your own relationship in these words, please know this. Trust your gut. When something feels wrong, it probably is. When someone starts pulling away, becoming a stranger, going through motions instead of engaging fully, that means something. Don't do what I did and rationalize it away for months. Don't accept agreeableness when what you really need is honesty. And if you discover what I discovered, betrayal, deception, a whole other life running parallel to yours, please know that it's not your fault. You didn't cause it. You didn't deserve it. And you will survive it. The day Marcus stopped fighting with me, I knew I'd lost him. But I'd found something else, myself. My strength. My resilience. My worth. And in the end, that was the more important discovery. Love should feel like coming home, not like walking on eggshells. It should feel like someone seeing you completely and choosing you anyway. It should feel like partnership, like teamwork, like two people who would rather figure things out together than give up. That's what I'm looking for now. And I won't settle for less. Not ever again. To everyone watching who's been through something similar, you're not alone. Your pain is valid. Your anger is justified. Your heartbreak is real. And you will get through this. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. One day at a time, one breath at a time, one choice at a time. Choose yourself. Choose healing. Choose the future over the past. And never, ever accept silence when what you need is a voice fighting for you. If this story resonated with you, please share your own experience in the comments. Let's support each other. Subscribe for more real stories of survival, strength, and second chances. You're not alone. And your story matters too.